Thank you for watching Edupedia World videos. In this session, we will see something regarding SQL. We'll see some basic SQL queries, types of DBMS which have their own SQL, and other things. Let's start with the introduction. So first question is, what is SQL? SQL, or Structured Query Language, is a database computer language which was designed to manage data in an RDBMS, which we have seen in our previous videos. SQL is a standardized computer language that was originally developed by IBM for querying, altering, and defining relational databases. SQL is pronounced as SQL. Now, the next question that should arise in our mind is, why do we need this SQL or SQL? There are databases and there are information that needs to be accessed or altered. So SQL can execute queries against a database. SQL can retrieve data from a database. SQL can insert new records in a database. SQL can update the records in a database. SQL can delete records from a database. It can create new databases as well, tables within a database. SQL can create stored procedures in a database and other things as well. You can even set permissions on tables, procedures, and views. Let us see some of the DBMS or RDBMS which are having SQL of their own. SQL, though, is a standard, but many of the databases system that exist today implement their own version of SQL language, such as Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL or Microsoft SQL, PostgreSQL, and SQL Lite. Now there are few other RDBMS also which we have not listed here that have their own SQL language. Let us see the different types of SQL statements. There are a couple of different types of SQL statements or languages that within the SQL exist, such as DDL or Data Definition Language, DMIL, which contains the queries for manipulation. Then there are control queries and transactional control statements, and then session control statements, where you can assign or you can abort anyone's session or take away from them the access to a session. Let us start with the DDL or Data Definition Language. The data definition language or statements are the most commonly used statements to define the database structure or table. Some of the common DDL are like creating new tables that uses create, modifying the structure of a database that uses alter. Now you want to delete a database or table, you use drop. You want to remove all the table records, you can use the truncate command here. If you want to rename any database or table, you can use the rename. Next is the DML or data manipulation language. The data manipulation statements are used for manipulating or managing the data within a table object. Some of these common DML are select when you want to retrieve data from the table. If you want to insert data into a table, you can use this insert query. For updating, you can use the update query, which updates the existing data within a table that is already existing. If you want to delete a record or rows, you can use this delete query here. If you want to merge, which means that the statements that are inserted and updated at the same time, depending on the conditions, you can use this merge query. You can also use log table query, so that you can log one or more tables in a specified mode. Next is the data control statements, which are used to give privileges or control to access limited data. Some of these common queries are grunt, revoke, analyze, and audit, and comment. If you use the grunt query here, it gives the privilege to the user for accessing database data. If you use revoke, it takes back those given privileges. If you use the analyze query here, it analyzes the statement to collect statistics information about that index cluster and other things about a user. If you want to have an audit to track the occurrence of a specific SQL statement or all SQL statement during the user sessions, you can use the audit. So the transaction control is the last SQL statement type that we are going to see here. The transaction control statement are used to apply the changes permanently and save into a database. Some of these common transaction control statements are commit, rollback, save point, and set transaction. Basically, these transaction control are used so as to have a save point or have a point where you can just see by committing those queries what will be the effect on your database or on the table. And if you are finding those effects on the database irrelevant or somehow posing a threat or a damage to the database, you can just roll back. So starting with the commit, it permanently works or saves into the database. The rollback query restores the database to the original form since the last committed statement. See some more on SQL. Like SQL database system needs semicolon at the end of the statement to know if it's ending. You can use the / once at the end of each script to tell the SQL that there is not more lines of the code. You cannot use the / at the middle of the script, and the SQL is not a case sensitive language. So these were the basics of SQL, and we all know that there are much deeper things that we can learn within SQL, and we will try to visit those deeper and harder concepts in SQL in the coming videos. So in the next session we will see the correlated nested queries, set comparison operation, aggregate operators, what are the null values, what is embedded SQL, and when we finish this SQL part we will soon start with a new tutorial series on MySQL. Thank you.